Welcome to SDR Hotline with Sales Hacker. My name is Gabrielle Blackwell. I'm super excited to be here because one, the past 38 minutes was so tense trying to get on here. So one, thank you so much for being online. Thank you to Brooklyn Nash and San Hembry from Sales Hacker for bearing with just this effort to try and get onto LinkedIn Live. But nonetheless, we're here. So let's get it started. Just to start off, right, with this event and every event afterwards for SDR Hotline, Sales Hacker is going to be doing some giveaways. So the first giveaway question, right? So you're going to respond to this and get a chance to get a gift from Sales Hacker. And the question is simply this: what is your favorite part of being an SDR? So answer in the chat. We'll choose a few people to get specifically 3, to get some Sales Hacker swag. So if you're not an SDR, if you're a salesperson, whatever it is, tell us what your favorite thing is about your sales development program, or maybe an SDR that you know. Wonderful. So today's feature, today's question, or the theme of today is all around motivation, right? Like, how do we keep ourselves motivated in what we're doing? How do we stay motivated in what might be deemed repetitive, redundant task, right? Whether that's doing the research, whether that's looking for contact data, whether that's something as simple as, writing emails and giving cold calls. So I took a few. I see Eric over here making money. So one of the big things in terms of the questions that were asked, right, in in Slido, were questions around motivation. So that's going to be the piece. The focus of today. So the first question that I got that I'd like to answer is, how do you set yourself up to prevent burnout as an SDR, right? This person is currently doing an SDR internship and they're already feeling exhausted. So I think with any job, there are going to be parts of it that are going to be that could be tiring, right? They're not going to be fueling. But the key parts right here is going to be self-awareness. It's going to be an awareness of what are the things that are going to fuel you, that are going to keep you energized. What are the things that are, maybe creative outlets for you? Like, what are the things that bring you life in your job? And one of the challenges in trying to identify that piece, right, is, again, it's just a matter of self-awareness. So I recommend asking a few questions to yourself, right? Whether it's every day, every other day, but at least a few times a week. And over the course of a couple months, you'll start to see some themes and some trends. So as you're going about your day, think to yourself, hey, like, what are when did I feel my best today? When did I feel fueled up? And what was I doing? Right? Or maybe how did I do it? And if you're able to identify the ways in which you're able to keep yourself fueled throughout the day, that can help stay motivated. And I think a second part here is, funny enough, I was talking to one of the reps, Logan Cookingham from Gong yesterday, and I was asking him, what is it that is helping you excel in the SDR role? And what he shared with me was getting into a flow state. So one of the easiest ways to eat up your energy, to eat up, your essence, right? Your vitality throughout the day, is to have almost like context interruptions throughout your day. So think about what an SDR is going to be doing, right, in their day-to-day job. It's going to be researching, prospects and account. It's going to be crafting compelling messaging. It's going to be cold calling. There's probably a bunch of other things. So rather than if you're going to be reaching out to me, for example, rather than say, I'm going to research Gabrielle, I'm going to research Gong, I'm going to craft an email, I'm going to give Gabrielle a call, right? Stop and then move on to the next account. Instead, think about all the people you have to research and do all your research on all the different people that you're going to reach out to within that hour, right? Then the next hour, that's when you're going to start crafting the emails, right? Then the next hour, that's when you're going to be doing the calls. So think through how can I introduce some flows into my day, right? To ensure that I have enough energy to sustain myself day over day, week over week. So that's my recommendation here for how do you set yourself up to prevent burnout as an SDR. Step 1, right, self-awareness. And then step 2 is going to be structuring your days in order to achieve that flow state. Cool. Perfect. So for the next question is, how do you keep motivated when you're the only one on the team of 3 who is dialing and your manager is just ignoring the fact that you are making 85% of the calls? Ooh. So I have a thought on this. So when I was an SDR, humble flex, I was doing, I think, like 3x the amount of work, right? I was putting out 3x the amount of meetings that the next SDR, right, the second performing SDR was doing, right? So there's sometimes where you feel like you might be running laps around the people around you, and there could be potentially some feeling of like resentment even, right? Like of like, oh, hey, I'm doing all of these things, right? And people next to me aren't, and nobody's talking about it. Like, why should I be working as hard if my coworker over here is doing half of the work or even a quarter of the work that I'm doing and we're treated exactly the same? One thing that I would highly recommend is like focusing on the things that you can control specifically. So you can control your outputs, you can control your activities, but you can't control what your manager is going to do, and you can't really control what the other people on your team are going to do. So if we have this mindset, right, where we're just focusing on ourselves rather than focusing on what other people are doing, number one, we're not allowing that piece, right? We're not allowing what our manager is doing or not doing, or we're not allowing our coworkers what they're doing or not doing to distract us from the vision that we're in service to, right? So like, I think this is the key piece is like, what are you working towards? Like, what is your bigger why, right? Like, why are you an SDR right now? What is this preparing you for? So for example, if you're putting in, if you are putting in a significant amount of work, it's like, more significant than anybody else on the team. One, I might look at this as an opportunity to say, hey, listen, I figured something out for myself. Like, I wanted to be a leader. I always knew I wanted to be a leader. So I'm like, I figured out something. I want to, I need to now operationalize my own success. Like, what is it about what I'm doing today that's enabling me to get 85% more than my teammates? And maybe I can approach my manager and say, hey, listen, I think that potentially some of my teammates, or hey, I figured out a process that works really well for getting a lot of activities in through the day. And I also have the production results that align to, hey, like my method is working very well. What do you think of me creating a playbook, right, for the team? So in this case, right, like you now get to, you've already observed something, right? Might as well put that to use rather than sitting around, right, and thinking to yourself, oh, golly, I'm putting in more work than everybody else. WTF, right? So I'd say like put your good work to even more good work. I think that's the first piece. I think the second piece is, hey, listen, if you really do value recognition and that's something that's not coming to you in the organization that you're in, have a conversation with your manager about that. And if after you've raised that concern up with your manager, like, hey, listen, I benefit very well from being recognized in public, especially when I'm doing 85% more work than my coworkers, and you're not getting the recognition, right, that you really want and need. I think that's the time where you ask yourself, hey, what are my values? What are my principles? What fuels me? Like, is this a place that I can grow and build in? And is this a place that I, that is, that's allowing me to grow, right, and to build and to learn and continue to be challenged? And if not, then that's when I would say, hey, listen, there might need to be a little bit more self-discovery as to what's going to be a better situation for yourself and what kind of leadership would you actually benefit from. So that's, I would, I'd say, hey, listen, you have a choice. Put your concerns into good use for the organization that you're in, right? Find a way, communicate actively with your manager on the ways that you find yourself to be fueled through recognition, right? Or the third piece could be recognizing, hey, this isn't the place for me, right? This isn't a great place. I don't feel great in this. I'm doing more work. I'm not getting recognized for it, and nobody else is getting, quote unquote, punished for it. So maybe there might be a misalignment in values, right, for yourself and then for the company. Perfect. Okay, cool. So yes. All right. Sorry, guys, I'm rushing through this because I'll be honest with you, I got a meeting in 12 minutes. So we're going to get through this. So this next question that I have is, how do you stay motivated when your boss trims your commission on deals you single-handedly sold. And when you question, they say you're not a team player. Oh, I do not like that response from your boss. And let me tell you why, right? I was at a company where we were going to implement something. We were going to implement I believe it was like a new territory model or a new model of pairing up SDRs and AEs. And what ended up happening was, like, in this conversation, right, I had some of my peers, and I felt like they just bulldozed right past me. I just felt like super dismissed, and as if what the concerns that I had shared, like, they just didn't matter. I'm like, hey, like, why are you even inviting me to the table if you're never going to listen to anything that I say? And so I remember I just kind of like said whatever. I almost like gave up for a moment. I was like, you know what? We're going to do whatever these folks want to do. It doesn't matter what I say or what I do. We're still going to do it. And when I just essentially surrendered, I was given the positive feedback. Thanks for being a team player. And I was like, I think this is actually not even the definition of a team, right? Like, we're just bulldozing ahead. We're not including people, those kind of things. So I don't like that response from the boss, but that I might be projecting. I tried to look up some information on what companies are allowed to do in terms of commissions and changing how you get paid. So companies do have the right to change how you get paid on your commissions, right? But they can only do that, like, they can notify you that they're going to change that, but it's not until they notify you from that point on that they can change the commission structure. They cannot change your commissions retroactively, right? So I would say, number one, check your paperwork, check your commission structure, like, make sure that, like, hey, like, is what they're doing legal? Is this part of your contract? Are they allowed to do that? And if they're not, right, like, maybe your boss isn't the person to go to. Like, maybe it's somebody in revenue operations if you have that function, but whoever is handling paperwork specifically in your org, I would go and have a conversation with them and ask them some questions. And I think I don't want to say it's the worst, but the other opportunity that you have here is to seek counsel. I might, like, ask somebody who has some understanding of how things work legally on that one. But, you know, like, if I close a deal and then all of a sudden after I close the deal, they're letting me know that my commission structure has changed and that's going to impact that deal. That's the first time I'm hearing about it. Like, that is an infraction on the company's part. You are entitled to the money that you make, the end. So that's my answer on that one. And in terms of how to stay motivated on that piece, I think it'd be hard to be motivated there, right? Like, how can you really be motivated if you do all this really great work? You have expectations that were shared to you by the people who are in management and leadership. You do the work that you were asked to do. You do it well. You close a deal. And then all of a sudden someone's like, good job, but I'm sorry. That doesn't really demonstrate respect, right? It doesn't really demonstrate trust. And so I think, you know, if you don't have respect and if you don't have trust, and these are the people who are, you know, your leaders, quote unquote leaders, then yeah, it'd be super hard to stay motivated. So I don't know. I don't know how I would stay motivated. Like, to me, I'd be like, hey, listen, like, is this the expectation moving forward, that out of the blue, my commission structure or the way that I get paid commissions can be changed retroactively? And if the answer is yes, like, that to me sounds like a place I wouldn't want to be around. So bye. That's kind of like what I say about that. So, you know, if the company, I would have a conversation with the appropriate people around the legality of what happened. Hashtag bye. Yeah, so I'd have a conversation with the folks at your organization, maybe someone higher up than your boss, if possible. I don't know the size of your company. But if they are saying, hey, listen, we are entitled to do this, right, and that doesn't really align with the expectations, I would ask yourself the question of, like, hey, is this actually a place where you're going to feel confident and secure and safe, and as if, you know, you're not living in fear or working in fear of your commissions being reduced, despite that not being the expectation beforehand. So that's my response to that one. Wish I could give you something a little bit, like, more bubbly and bright, but that to me seems questionable. And then another question that we have here is, how do you deal with the monotony of contact, research, and outreach? I'm getting bored and losing motivation for that part of my job, but that's where my KPIs are. So I read this before the show a couple times, and this question. Initially, I was like, okay, I can get that, like contact research and outreach could get a little monotonous, but also like that's so key for sales. Like you have to research, because part of the research is going to power your conversations. Like if you're not doing that research, right, then you probably sound like every other sales rep, like some generic sales rep person, right? So the contact research and the outreach, like, if you're not actually doing the outreach to folks, like, then what are you doing, right, as an SDR? So like these to me are two essential pieces of being a sales development rep. I think if you find that to be monotonous, I think the first question is, hey, like, again, this kind of gets back to your bigger why. Why are you in the SDR role? What is it preparing you for? Like, I think that's the biggest question. What is this SDR role preparing you for? And what's required of you right now to be able to get to that next step in your career, right? Or at your company or whatever it is. And then once you recognize what's required of you in order to get to like whatever it is that you're working towards, like that to me removes the monotony of the job. Like for me, when I was in SDR, like I was stepping into the SDR role, or before I'd even stepped into the SDR role, when I was thinking about going into sales, I was freaked out by it. I was like, how am I going to do cold calls? How am I going to do cold emails? Like I'm going to be calling people that I don't know and they don't know me. Like that sounds terrible. Like that sounds terrible. And also the reason why I even thought about going into sales is because I was like, I don't know exactly what I want to do, but I know I want to get into a position where I can be an effective chief executive officer. And like, where did CEOs start their career? They start in finance, they start in sales. There's a bunch of other ones, but like those were the two main ones that really stuck out for me. I didn't want to work in spreadsheets, but I was like, I could talk to people though, right? So for me, like I already had that intrinsic motivation to excel, right, in the SDR role. And the contact research and the outreach, like those were things that I had to do to excel. They were things that I think you kind of have to dig into that bigger why, right? Like, is this what you want to do? Because like in sales, you're going to be doing contact research and you're going to be doing outreach, and it's critical to the job, right? But maybe you don't want to do the contact research. Maybe you don't want to do the outreach. Maybe sales isn't your thing. Maybe it's more so marketing, right? Maybe it's more so sales engineering. Maybe it's more on the customer success side. So I would say, like, again, like think about what is this SDR role preparing you for? Like, what is it giving you access to? And then from there, right? Like, right, stay focused on that and recognize that, yes, your outreach, contact research, it might not be the most fulfilling thing, but it's getting you prepared for that thing that will be most fulfilling for you. All right. So we have 4 minutes. And again, I do have a meeting that I have to run to. We'll have more time next week. So for the folks who came on board today, thank you so much for being here. But before I go, we have another giveaway for you, another opportunity to get some sales hacker swag. So what you will need to do here is answer a question, something as simple as, have you experienced burnout as a sales rep? That's the simple question. And then in your answer, right, just answer yes. If you've experienced it, you could also say no if you want. And then, sorry, I'm like reading in the instructions on the bottom at the same time too, and I'm hearing about it. So it says then choose whoever we want. Okay, so yes. So sorry, yeah. So if you answer yes, I'll choose you. I'll choose somebody who says yes, and then my friend Brooklyn Nash will get you hooked up with some sales hacker swag. So feel free to say yes if you've ever felt burnout. If you're wondering what is burnout, the experience that I had was pretty drastic, but burning out could be, feeling incredibly tired. It could be going into work wondering why you're there. It could be, feeling distracted and unfocused and jittery and scattered. So if there's any time you felt like that, being in sales is one thing, but maybe it's having been in another experience. Feel free to just share that message of yes, or if you're not comfortable saying yes here on the chat, feel free to just reach out to me on LinkedIn, drop a message. and we will get you hooked up. Hey, what's up, Neil? I appreciate you. Appreciate you sharing this. Thank you for being vulnerable enough to like raise your hand and let everybody know they're not alone. So I have definitely had burnout. Yes, big time. So Brooklyn, I want some swag. But anyways, all right. So I'm going to log off, y'all. Again, so sorry for all the technical difficulties and for being late today. But nonetheless, so happy that you were here. So happy to just have this space with you. So if you have any other questions, comments, concerns, whatever it is, feel free to holler at me, Gabrielle Blackwell on LinkedIn. Pretty responsive. Otherwise, I will see you next time.